What a joy it is to be with one of my favorite people on the planet Earth, Jimmy Fortune. Welcome, Jimmy.
Thank you, Scott. You're one of mine too, brother. You and your family. Thank you so much.
We've been around a long time.
Yep.
And we are talking about your brand new book, Jimmy Fortune, Story of an American Dreamer. Now, at one time, it was going to be called Untold Fortune, I remember.
Untold Fortune, yeah. For some reason, my wife didn't like that. You know how it is with them wives, you know. You got to hear their opinion. And she just said, she said, I don't know, it doesn't have a real good ring to it. But anyway, maybe that'll come next time.
You're going to do a follow-up, you think?
Well, maybe. I don't know. We'll see. This one took so long, and I was trying to, but maybe one day whenever I'm not touring, and if that ever comes about, I don't know that it will, but, you know, I might just sit down and write down stories that have never been told. So
about a decade ago, we talked about you wanted to write a book and working on it, and I said the most important thing, you've got so many great photos, you got to include photos in the book. And man, there's some great ones of little Jimmy back in your school days, and teenage Jimmy, and just a lot of great photos. I'm glad that you included the photos.
Oh, and, absolutely.
You've got some great ones.
I hope so. You know, it's hard to go through, and it's hard to write a book about yourself. And you know, you got to figure out how to write about, you know, your friends and your family and how much you're going to put in there, and then you just got to look at the journey, and that's what I had to do. I had to look at the journey and kind of pick the high spots, and then there were some low spots as well. But every story takes you down a road where you've got more stories, and so at some point you got to figure, where do I cut this off, because you just can't lead people on a wild goose chase, because just like the roads in our lives, you know, we have roads that we take that continue on for a long time, and then there are roads that, you know, are short little drives. But the book, you know, I think it shows who I am, and like I said before, it's not so much when I realize it's not so much. My story's not so different from everybody else's. Everybody's got a story. But I feel like when people look at you on stage, they wonder, you know, what happened? Where did he come from? Well, what was his life like before? And it gives you an insight to my life. And then I think they put themselves in it too, in a way, because as they're thinking about that, they're thinking about, well, this happened to me, and my life is, you know, everybody could write a book. I wished it, but it's not easy.
It is not, and I know you worked so long on it. I actually talked to you before I had gotten my first book out.
Yeah.
Over 10 years ago.
Right.
Now, I don't get paid on my books until we sell them, you know what I mean?
Right.
So I'm glad that it didn't work out that I did yours, because I went broke in that decade waiting for that one book to be out. As I've done a dozen books in that time.
You do such a great job. The books that you have written about so many friends of mine, it's wonderful.
Well, hopefully.
And I knew that. And I knew that going in. I said, if he waits on me, it's going to take forever. So
I'm sure it's worth the wait, though, and I'm glad you got it out. I'm glad you got it done.
Yeah.
Hope you sell 1 million copies.
Well, I appreciate it. I doubt if I'll do that, but it's out there. And it'll be out long after I'm gone. So.
And they can get that at jimmyfortune.com?
jimmyfortune.com. You can get it many places on gaithermusic.com. It's out there in a lot of places. So,
you know, the Legends of Country Music Museum, where we're sitting,
I love this place.
They sell all of Scott England's books.
Oh,
so
there we go.
Maybe they could sell Jimmy Fortune.
Absolutely. We can make it happen.
Now, we've been pals a long time, but there is something about you there's a question I can ask you that you can't ask very many people. How does it feel to have a statue of yourself?
Well, and again, it's the things that have happened in my life that I can't figure out, and I call them God things. That's the only way I know to explain it. Just like being with the Statler Brothers, I had to pinch myself. You know, I came from you know, small beginnings in Virginia, in the middle of nowhere, rural area, and I love music, and I followed my heart with music, but I never dreamed of things happening. These are things that God does that I sit back and I look at it and I go, wow. It wasn't me. I don't even know how to explain that, except for my mama's prayers and God's good grace. But being in the Hall of Fame with the Statler Brothers and the Gospel Music Hall of Fame, Country Music Hall of Fame, the Virginia Musical Hall of Fame, those things that just keep happening that you just can't figure out why. And I had a friend of mine called me. He called me up one day, and he said, you know, I've been thinking. He said, I want to do see if we can get a statue for you in your hometown. And I didn't know all these things you had to go through to have a statue. You have to have it commissioned. You have to have all these certain things that happen in your life to be able to have a statue. I didn't know that. And so when he said that, I said, I don't need a statue. I said, his name was Lyndon Cook. Him and his wife Peggy are such sweet, dear friends of mine. And he said, no, I think you really do. I said, I'll tell you what. I said, I'm good friends with Earl Hamner. He's from the same place I'm from. And I said, Earl had passed away.
The creator of the Waltons.
The creator of the Waltons.
Narrator of the Waltons.
And narrator of the Waltons. So he was the original John Boy on the Waltons, that you hear his voice when he's narrating the show. We got to be good friends, and I loved him so much, and I just thought, I said, you know, he doesn't really have anything in our hometown. He has the home place where he grew up, and I think there's a bench there, and the old home place, and now the TV home is there in Schuyler, Virginia, which is only about 10 miles from where I grew up. And we swapped stories back and forth, and I loved him dearly, just a wonderful Southern gentleman. I said, I tell you what, he needs a statue. And I said, if you could get a statue for him, I said, it would make me so happy. And I said, I could be there with you to help you, do everything and whatever it is it takes. I didn't have any idea what goes into to make a statue happen, And he said, well, okay, that's fine. But he said, we'll do one for him. And they said, but we'll do one for you too. And I was like, oh my God, you got to be kidding. He said, nope, not. He said, we're going to do one for him and one for you. So they called and did the work that you have to do that goes into it, and the money that it cost. I didn't realize what it cost to have a statue, a bronze statue.
And it is a huge statue. It's way more than life size.
No, it's pretty much life size.
It's
9 feet tall.
9 feet tall.
Yeah, and it sits there, and I've got my guitar, and I'm like, and then Earl is sitting on the bench with his book and his paper and his pen, and he's writing, and I'm playing to him. Basically, we're having a conversation, I think, on there, and it's pretty magical, really. It's right on the side of Route 29 when you go through Nelson County, right through the middle of Nelson County, and it's at the Historical Society there in Nelson County. But I still can't get over it. I really can't.
I wasn't surprised that you got a statue, but I was surprised it was 9 foot tall. I mean,
I kind of thought maybe too. I'm like, y'all want to make it? It's going to be 9 foot tall? Man, what in the world?
It's impressive.
And the guy that did the statue, he does them all around the world. This artist that does them, he came to me after. He said, well, Jimmy, he said, I got to tell you, you're the only person I've ever done a statue for that's still living.
Wow.
Yeah, I thought, well, that's pretty cool, because he has them in Washington, D.C., he has them all over the world.